On Sunday, November 15, 2015, 16-year-old Tyshon Booker shot and killed 25-year-old G'Metrick Caldwell, firing multiple shots into his back while seated in the back seat of G'Metrick's car. This fact is undisputed. However, there are two conflicting stories about what happened. The first version of events comes from Tyshon himself, who claimed that the shooting was an act of self-defense. The second version of events, which the state relied on, came from a middle-aged woman named Linda Hatch. Linda claimed that she had acted as a motherly figure in Tyshon's life and loved him like a son, and that she encouraged him to make good choices. However, this facade eventually came crumbling down after she got exposed during the trial, and the defense suggested that Linda may have fabricated parts of her story to avoid prosecution for her own actions due to her questionable relationship with Tyshon, or to potentially gain compensation as a paid informant. Despite the juvenile court finding Linda to be, in their words, creepy and despicable, both the state and the juvenile court relied on her version of the story in this case. Tyshon was born in 1999, and he grew up in what was described as a war zone, witnessing family violence, specifically the beating of his mother and the murder of his aunt. He experienced being shot at and dealt with the deaths of many family members. These experiences had a profound impact on Tyshon, leading to significant mental health challenges. Tyshon never knew his father, as he was tragically shot and killed just 2 weeks before he was born. He did have a close bond with his paternal grandfather, who played a major role in his life and taught him how to be a young man. Sadly, his grandfather was stabbed to death in his own home on the 2300 block of Linden Avenue. Tyshon felt responsible for his grandfather's death because he wasn't there when it happened. He started experiencing intrusive memories related to the event and became emotionally detached, even from his own family. He began using marijuana in 8th grade, explaining that it helped him cope. He was eventually diagnosed with 3 conditions, including PTSD. Dr. Keith Cruz pointed to the death of Tyshon's grandfather as a major turning point, and he believed that this event was directly linked to the development of his PTSD. Dr. Cruz also suggested that the trauma Tyshon experienced had a profound effect on his ability to form healthy relationships and manage his emotions. Tyshon grew up with his mother and 4 brothers, and they lived in various parts of East Knoxville before finally settling in South Knoxville on Martin Mill Pike. He described his relationship with his mother as rocky. They would frequently argue, and sometimes arguments would get so heated that his mother would kick him out of the house. By the fall of 2015, Tyshon was a junior at South Doyle High School, although he didn't attend classes regularly. He was on juvenile probation for offenses like disorderly conduct, making false reports, violating curfew, and being an active runaway. Tyshon had a tight-knit group of friends, including a boy who went by the name Ears Tate and Bradley Robinson, people he'd grown up with and known for years. Together they'd hang out, go to events, and like many teenagers, they'd smoke marijuana together. One of Tyshon's best friends was Shantara Washington, and he was dating Jada Mostella. Linda Hatch lived right next door to Tyshon's family with her husband, Heath Hatch, her 3 nieces, and a nephew, though she referred to them as her kids. Tyshon met Linda under unusual circumstances on July 29, 2015, the day of his brother's birthday. He and his family were on their way to Gatlinburg to celebrate when he got into an argument with his mom and was kicked out of the car. After packing his things, he planned to meet a friend in East Knoxville, and he began walking down the road with a garbage bag with his clothes spilling out. Linda pulled up to him on the side of the road and offered him a ride. She said that her heart made her stop and ask this young man if he needed help, because he seemed stressed and frustrated. She also said that she could tell he'd been crying. He initially told her that he was fine and didn't need a ride. However, he eventually decided to get in her car. Linda introduced herself to him, explaining that she was his neighbor and that her daughter knew him because they went to school together, and she often talked about him. After dropping Tyshon off in East Knoxville, Linda invited him to visit her place whenever he wanted, and he started visiting the house often, sometimes with other friends including Bradley and Ears Tate. Tyshon had a 9mm gun which he would use for music videos. Heath had been teaching Tyshon how to shoot, and he had also cleaned the gun. In one instance, the gun had an issue, so Bradley took it to the back porch to test if it would fire, and it did. There was also a Snapchat video taken in the summer of 2015, where Tyshon was shooting what looked like a 9mm gun from someone's back porch. Linda had a close relationship with Tyshon, who she often referred to as Ty, and she described him as very intelligent and so sweet. She spoke about how she had acted as a motherly figure in his life, and that she treated him as one of her own kids. She even referred to him as son. She said that she put more love and time into Tyshon than with her own son, and that she spent more time with him than her own child because she loved him. She said that she helped him improve his grades, encouraged him to work, and provided him with emotional support. Linda said, quote, "Even when he didn't feel like he had people proud of him at home, he knew I was very proud of him, and he knew I loved him very dearly." She emphasized how she tried to be a positive influence on him, teaching him right from wrong, providing structure, and discouraging him from using drugs. Linda said she had even lectured him many times about robbing people or getting involved in any criminal behavior. According to her, when Tyshon was around her, he stayed out of trouble. Linda claimed that things started to change when Tyshon began spending more time with Bradley, who was on the run for violating probation at that time. That's when it all went downhill. However, this image of Linda as a nurturing and upstanding figure started to fall apart pretty quickly. When Linda first met Tyshon on July 29th, he asked her if she smoked, and when she said yes, they smoked a blunt together in her car. After their first meeting, Tyshon started visiting Linda's house occasionally. When Tyshon went over for the first time, Linda gave him a tour of her house. She showed him things like motorcycles, an upstairs game system, a computer with Wi-Fi, and even a tattoo machine. Outside, she had a trampoline and a punching bag. As a 16-year-old, this was all fun and exciting to Tyshon. By November 2015, Tyshon was visiting her house almost daily, spending nights there, and even leaving some clothes behind. Linda gave him several tattoos, bought him clothes and jewelry, and they spent every day together smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol together. Their communication initially took place over text or calls, but after his phone service was shut off, they started messaging each other on Facebook Messenger. On Facebook, Tyshon went by the name Ty Hilliband's Tyshon, and him and Linda often talked about tattoos, his gun, and drugs. Tyshon was involved in selling crack cocaine, and Linda actually helped him find buyers. Their Facebook messages showed Tyshon mentioning that he was trying to sell a pack, and she replied saying, "I done hit up a few, no one biting." She asked about the type of product he had, whether if it was powder or bricks, and asked him for the price, and said that she was trying to spread the word. When she was confronted about these messages, she claimed that when she was asking him about the kind of drugs he had, it was so she could inform her husband about what was being brought into her home. But she obviously denied ever using drugs with him, helping him obtain any, and even helping him find buyers. In another set of Facebook messages, Tyshon sent Linda a text saying, "I need some weed." Linda responded, "Do you want to go in half?" She later explained that she sent the message on behalf of Bradley Robinson. She even blamed her niece Tiffany Springer, and said that she was the one who sent those messages from her phone. However, both Tyshon and Tiffany denied this. She also admitted to asking Tyshon if he wanted to choke with her, but explained that she meant smoking cigars, not marijuana. In another exchange, Linda wrote to Tyshon, "Flower man just called taking orders," meaning the guy who lived down the street was asking if anyone wanted to buy marijuana. She tried to explain that while she discouraged Tyshon from using drugs when they were face-to-face, she sometimes said crazy stuff on Facebook. There was also a message where Linda sent Tyshon a link to a picture of which she later clarified was a reference to an exotic cake she was making, and she just wanted his opinion on the cake. Linda firmly denied that there was any relationship between her and Tyshon. She did, however, admit to taking what she called pictures of him, explaining that Tyshon had asked her to take them. However, Tyshon said that Linda told him he was handsome and wanted to take his picture, so he posed for her. Additionally, Tyshon said that he had two encounters with Linda, both initiated by her. The first involved her performing oral on him, and the second involved oral on him and 3 of his friends. On the morning of November 15, 2015, Tyshon woke up at a house on Speedway Circle, which belonged to his brother's father, Bill. Bradley and Bill were also there that morning. At the time, Bradley was running from juvenile probation, and Tyshon's mother wouldn't let him stay at her house. At some point, Bradley showed Tyshon some Snapchat messages he had received from G'Metrick Caldwell, where G'Metrick asked what he was doing and if he wanted to smoke. The plan seemed to be to meet up with him and get high. So the boys waited outside the house for G'Metrick to pick them up. After G'Metrick picked them up, Bradley sat in the front passenger seat and Tyshon sat in the back, and they started driving around Knoxville. Later that afternoon, G'Metrick stopped the car on a curb, and Tyshon shot him 6 times, hitting him in the back, side of the chest, and right shoulder. After the shooting, both Tyshon and Bradley ran from the scene. 2 911 calls were made on the day of the murder. The first call came at 5:23 p.m. from Alicia Allison, who reported that someone had been shot and was hanging out of his car. Ralph Hunter called 911 shortly after. Ralph was sitting on his front porch on Linden Avenue when he heard gunshots. When he looked down the street, he saw 2 young men running from a maroon car that had been parked on the opposite side of the street. Ralph heard a total of 6 or 7 shots, with only a few seconds between the first 2 shots and the second 4 shots. KPD officer James Wilson was on patrol when he received a call about a shooting on Linden Avenue at 5:24 p.m. He was less than a half a mile away when he received the call about shots fired, and he immediately activated his emergency recording equipment and made his way to the scene. When he arrived at the scene around 5:25 p.m., he saw G'Metrick partially inside and partially outside the car. The front doors of the car were open, but the rear doors were closed. From the waist down, G'Metrick was still inside the car, while his head and shoulders were resting on the ground outside. Upon checking G'Metrick, Officer Wilson found that he didn't have a pulse, and he immediately called for medical assistance and then secured the area. He noticed several shell casings at the scene, specifically inside G'Metrick's car, and a firearm lying on the floorboard. The gun recovered from G'Metrick's car was a Sky 9mm, and it was loaded with 9 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. Timothy Shade, a KPD crime scene technician and certified latent print examiner, took hundreds of photos of the scene and the evidence that had been collected. Shade recovered 5 spent shell casings from the scene. The casings were found on the street, in the small section near the rear passenger side door handle, and on the floorboard of the car. He also processed several items inside the car for fingerprints, including a Powerade bottle, a Coke bottle, and the gun on the floorboard of the car. G'Metrick's car was eventually towed to the KPD's forensic unit garage, where Shade used magnetic powder to carefully process the car for fingerprints. Shade found 51 roxicodone 30 pills inside the car, and each pill was worth approximately $30 at the time. Dr. Darinka Milesnik-Polchan, the chief medical examiner for Knox County, performed G'Metrick's autopsy and confirmed that he had suffered 4 gunshot wounds to his back. The official cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds, and the manner of death was ruled a homicide. Additionally, the toxicology report showed that G'Metrick had a marijuana metabolite in his system when he died. Dr. Milesnik-Polchan also noted that G'Metrick had a significant amount of cash on him at the time of his death, which was later confirmed to be about $835 in cash. Timothy Shade eventually went to the medical examiner's office, where he fingerprinted G'Metrick, performed a gunshot residue test on him, and collected additional evidence from him, including the cash. Alex Brodhag, a firearm expert from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, examined the jacket G'Metrick had on when he died. Brodhag concluded that the shots were fired from within 6 feet of G'Metrick. However, without the actual murder weapon, which was never recovered, he could not determine the exact distance from which the shots were fired. Additionally, Patricia Razig, a firearms expert, examined the 9mm Sky semi-automatic handgun that had been recovered from G'Metrick's car and confirmed that none of the casings from the crime scene matched this firearm. The police contacted Sprint, who confirmed that just minutes before the shooting, 4 calls were made from G'Metrick's phone, none of which were answered. The first 3 calls were made to Tyshon's girlfriend, Jada, and the 4th call was made to his close friend, Shantara. Neither of the girls knew G'Metrick. After that, there were no further outgoing calls from G'Metrick's phone. However, the phone was used multiple times, turning on and off 28 times up until November 30th. Just 2 days after the murder, on November 17th, the Knox County Juvenile Court authorized the release of Tyshon's fingerprint card to the Knoxville Police Department for their investigation into G'Metrick's death. Timothy Shade matched Tyshon's prints to 6 different spots on or near the passenger side door of G'Metrick's car. He also found 5 sets of prints that belonged to Bradley around the exterior of the front passenger side door of the car. Tyshon was eventually arrested in Linda's home. After the police took him into custody and left, Linda went to pick up Bradley, who was also soon arrested. A few days later, Linda went to the station to give her statement. She also asked Detective Thomas Thurman to become a confidential informant. She had jokingly told him to write her check bigger and requested that KPD compensate her for her son's basketball, which had been destroyed during Tyshon's arrest. Linda's version of events are as follows. Linda claimed that during the week of November 6th, she noticed that Tyshon had a pistol that belonged to his brother. Concerned, she warned him about having the gun. Tyshon did return the gun to his brother, but just days later, Linda saw him with a different weapon, a 9mm pistol. She said that she even caught him shooting it on her back porch several times, and at that point she believed he only had a few rounds left. Worried that Tyshon and his friends might be stealing money from her daughter, Linda decided to set up a camera on her kitchen table to monitor what was going on. The footage from that camera showed Tyshon, Bradley, and Ears Tate walking around her house. In it, Ears Tate is seen with Tyshon's gun stuck down his pants. He then points it at Bradley and starts making gunshot sounds, saying boom, 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 to which Tyshon replies, "Give me back my gun." In the video, Bradley was also seen holding a .32 caliber gun. On the day of the murder, Tyshon texted Linda twice. The first text was around 3 p.m., and he asked her to come pick him up. She was busy cooking, so she didn't respond right away. By 6:11 p.m., he sent another message which said, "Scoop me right now." Feeling something was wrong, she replied asking if he was okay. He insisted she pick him up from the Skyline Drive area where she had last dropped him off, so she took her daughter, Tiffany, and went to find him. When she arrived at the house where she had dropped off Tyshon, he wasn't there, and she couldn't get in touch with him. She waited for a while, and then began driving around East Knoxville, checking other places he might be. She shared how worried she felt, saying, "I sat in front of the Skyline home after I had drove around East Knoxville for over 3 hours looking for my son, and I was very scared something had happened to him." She even knocked on the door of the house several times afterwards, but she still didn't find him. Eventually, she went home because Tiffany had school the next day, and she didn't speak to either Tyshon or Bradley that night. Early the following morning, Tyshon showed up at Linda's back door. He woke Tiffany up, telling her he needed to talk to her mother. Linda described how concerned she became when she saw him. "When I was able to get up and get dressed and come to my kitchen, Tyshon was in my kitchen, sitting at my kitchen table, and he was very upset, and he was very emotional and appeared to be very scared, and he was saying, 'Mom, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you right now.' And when he said that, he had tears in his eyes, which I've saw before, and I knew that something was wrong." Linda said that she then asked her other children to leave the room and get ready for school so she could talk to Tyshon in private. As they spoke, Linda said that she tried to comfort him. She described him as having his head in his hands, crying softly and saying, "Mama, I f***ed up." Concerned, she asked him what was wrong. He then said that he f***ed his life up. When Linda pressed him, asking if it was about his mother or his brother, he responded, "No, Mama, I f***ed my life up." He then said, "Mama, I killed a man." At first, she couldn't believe what she was hearing, and she was in denial because, in her words, my Ty wouldn't do this. He eventually told her that they planned to meet someone and rob him, but things had gone terribly wrong. Ty said, "We wasn't supposed to hurt him. Bradley said we would just take his drugs and money." Trying to understand, Linda asked him, "Ty, did you take that gun and shoot? Did you kill somebody with that gun?" Tyshon said that he didn't mean to, and the whole thing just happened so fast. Linda claimed that Tyshon told her that Bradley grabbed G'Metrick and tried to hold him down, while he was supposed to grab the money and weed. But the guy fought back, broke free, and Bradley couldn't hold him down anymore, so he told Tyshon to shoot him. Tyshon said that he pulled the trigger, and when he pulled it, he couldn't stop and kept shooting. When he eventually let go of the trigger, he had already emptied the gun. She then asked him how he knew G'Metrick was dead, wondering if he might have just wounded him instead. But Tyshon told her that G'Metrick was definitely dead. He said they had left him there, dangling, and ran off, and there was no doubt in his mind that G'Metrick was dead. Tyshon went on to say that after shooting G'Metrick, he threw the gun away and ran. He also allegedly told Linda that his brother had bought him a clip of hollow-point bullets, and that's what he used to blow G'Metrick's chest out. The next day, Linda saw Tyshon again and noticed he was acting differently. He seemed upbeat, almost too confident, and mentioned he was going to school. He also asked if she had seen the news, saying that the description of the suspect didn't match them at all, and the police had no clue about who was responsible. Then, on November 18th, as Linda was taking Tiffany to school, Tyshon came by again. As they were leaving, Linda noticed some suspicious cars outside, and she told him there might be police around. After dropping Tiffany off, Tyshon decided not to go into school. Instead, he and Linda went back to her house to work on music. But while they were there, police arrived at the house, pointed guns at Linda, handcuffed her, and took Tyshon into custody. She described the experience as being traumatic for her. Later that day, Linda got a call from Bradley and agreed to pick him up. As soon as he got into her car, however, the police arrived and took him into custody. Later that week, Tiffany and her mom visited the police station to give them her statement, meaning it wasn't until 4 days after the alleged confession is when she told the officers about it. When Tiffany and Linda went back home, they checked the porch for any casings, and when they found some, they left them there until an officer arrived to collect them. KPD crime technician Stephanie Housewright visited Linda's home on November 20th. She collected the 2 9mm shell casings from the scene, and the police were able to match these casings to the ones found at the crime scene. On November 23rd, a probable cause hearing took place in the Knox County Juvenile Court, and the court confirmed that there was enough probable cause to charge Tyshon and Bradley. During Tyshon's transfer hearings, Linda testified based on her version of the events. She also testified that she was not compensated in any way for her testimony in court. Despite finding Linda to be creepy and despicable, the juvenile court relied on her testimony to order Tyshon's transfer to criminal court. On July 27, 2016, a Knox County grand jury indicted Tyshon on 2 counts of first-degree felony murder and 2 counts of especially aggravated robbery. Just a couple of months later, on September 23, 2016, Tyshon filed a motion to dismiss the 2 counts of murder. He argued that if convicted on those charges, he would face an automatic life sentence, potentially lasting at least 51 years. His defense team argued that such a sentence applied without considering his age, unique characteristics, or the fact that he didn't necessarily intend to kill would be unconstitutional. Tyshon testified in his own defense, and his version of events are as follows. He admitted that he had never seen G'Metrick or his car before the day of the murder. He couldn't remember exactly when G'Metrick picked him up or how long they were in the car together. He also claimed that his gun was concealed under his shirt on his right hip, so G'Metrick wouldn't have known he had it. After getting picked up and getting in the car, G'Metrick asked Tyshon and Bradley if they knew where to buy marijuana, which surprised Tyshon since he expected G'Metrick to have some already. G'Metrick then told them that he had oxys and asked if they wanted any. G'Metrick gave Bradley and Tyshon 2 pills each for free, which they took. After that, they drove to another house to buy some marijuana. When they got to the house, G'Metrick handed Bradley $40 to buy 3.5 grams of weed. Tyshon offered to chip in, but G'Metrick insisted he keep his money. While Bradley went inside the house, G'Metrick and Tyshon stayed in the car, listening to music. Tyshon mentioned that he didn't speak much with G'Metrick since they didn't know each other. Once Bradley returned, they headed to a Chevron station to pick up cigars to smoke the marijuana, which G'Metrick bought. Tyshon's original plan was to meet up with his girlfriend Jada. Since his phone wasn't working, G'Metrick gave him his phone to call her. The plan was for Tyshon to go to his grandfather's old house on Linden Avenue, which his aunt's boyfriend now lived in, grab a change of clothes and something to eat, and then head to Jada's place. Tyshon then asked G'Metrick for a ride to Linden Avenue, and as they drove there, they smoked, listened to music, and Tyshon tried calling Jada again. By the time they reached Linden Avenue, Tyshon was still on the phone, but Jada didn't answer. He called again and explained that if she didn't answer this time, he would just have them wait outside while he got dressed and grabbed a bite to eat, and if she did answer, he would ask them to leave so he could walk to her house. After Jada didn't answer for the 3rd time, he tried calling Shantara instead because he was tired of being around boys all day, but she didn't pick up either. Just as he was about to try Jada's number again, he noticed G'Metrick reaching into Bradley's pockets and asking, What are we going to do now? This sparked an immediate reaction from Bradley, who in response said, "Fuck," and then angrily hit G'Metrick, and a physical altercation broke out. Tyshon then put the phone in his jacket pocket and got ready to defend his friend. He said, "In a situation like that, you're not going to say, 'Hey, stop fighting my friend. Here's your phone.'" G'Metrick, who was bigger, started pushing Bradley's face, while Bradley tried to land some punches. Tyshon said G'Metrick started mushing Bradley while reaching underneath his seat. Bradley then noticed what was happening and warned him. "He got a gun, bro." Even though Tyshon still couldn't see the weapon, he quickly pulled out his own gun from his hip. Tyshon explained that after he pulled out his gun, he tried to calm the situation, telling Bradley to stop and relax. G'Metrick allegedly said something to the effect of, "So you all are going to gang me?" and started reaching into the floorboard area where his weapon was. Tyshon was asked if there was anything stopping him from leaving the car at that moment, and he said that he wasn't going to leave his friend behind. They had arrived together, and he wasn't about to run off. Since he didn't know G'Metrick and saw that he was much bigger than Bradley, he felt that he needed to step in to help. Bradley then lunged toward the front seat, and both he and G'Metrick started struggling over the gun. Tyshon then saw that G'Metrick had gained control of the gun, and he started coming around with it in his right hand. G'Metrick managed to push Bradley off of him, and Bradley ended up back in his seat, leaning against the door. As G'Metrick turned around, Tyshon saw the gun and thought he was about to be shot. At this point, Tyshon felt panic. Fearing for his and his friend's life, Tyshon then fired a shot. He said that he wasn't aiming for any specific part of G'Metrick's body, and he wasn't sure where the shot landed. However, despite being shot, G'Metrick kept moving toward them, which caused Tyshon to shoot again. When G'Metrick didn't stop, Tyshon fired a third time. It wasn't until after several shots that G'Metrick stopped coming for them, sat in his chair, dropped his gun, opened his door, and partially fell out. That's when Tyshon and Bradley got out of the car and ran from the scene in different directions. Tyshon ended up hiding the gun in a tree stump before stopping at a McDonald's to catch his breath. It was only then that he realized he still had G'Metrick's phone. He said that he threw the phone away and then ran back to the house on Speedway Circle, where Bill was. He didn't call 911 because he was scared and overwhelmed by everything that had just happened, and he didn't even know if anyone would believe his side of the story since it all happened so fast. The next morning, he went to Linda's house, where he told her he had shot someone and why. He denied telling her that he had intended to rob G'Metrick, insisting that he had only told her the same thing he was now telling the jury. She advised him to distance himself from Bradley. Tyshon went back to her house on Tuesday and Wednesday, and on Wednesday he was arrested, and he's been in jail ever since. Additionally, Tiffany Springer overheard him saying, "I fucked up my life and I didn't know what to do. I panicked, so I kept going. I kept pulling it." Tiffany said that she didn't hear him mention anything about a robbery. Tyshon Booker's trial began on January 22nd, 2018, and lasted for 8 days. Tyshon, who was 17 years old at the time of the trial, was tried as an adult and was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree felony murder and 2 counts of especially aggravated robbery, and was sentenced to life in prison. Which version of events do you believe? Thank you for watching.